What's up, Tudorinos? Welcome back to the Game Addicts Podcast, a show where we talk about the modern and retro video games that we play and collect. I am this podcast player, one Brando, and joining me here today is this podcast special player two, Tyler McLaughlin.
Awkward pause.
Awkward pause, pregnant pause. Welcome back to the show, Tyler. It's so great to have you back on here once again, co-host of the great podcast, Podcastrophe. It's kind of hard. It's hard to say Podcastrophe. You almost just have to accept the fact that it's a great co-host of Podcastrophe, a podcast about whatever you guys want to have, whatever hell you want it to be about. Of course, you can catch that on podcastrophe.podbean.com each and every single week. I think it's Wednesdays, the same day that you release, right? That we go live, that you release or something like that.
No, we record on Tuesdays, and then our show drops on Thursday.
There's a lot of really cool stuff going on over there, though. You guys got some other cool shows that are hitting the feed. Of course, you can check that out on iTunes and Spotify, and you guys also have a YouTube channel and Facebook channel where you guys go live as well. So be sure to check out all of Tyler's cool stuff and projects they've got going on over there. It's really cool to have you back here today on the show. We haven't had you back on in just a little bit. Things have been kind of going on in our world. Mike is not here today. He was supposed to be, but of course, it's interesting because we kind of have talked about it, but haven't addressed it. We've talked about it on shows that haven't aired yet. And what's going on? Well, Mike kind of has a medical condition with his sinus. Mm-hmm. And he's had a surgery before, last summer. And he was actually on a show pretty much not long after the surgery and suffered through it. We had a friend on from the UK. It was really cool to have him on. And Mike suffered through that. Well, he has another surgery coming up. It's going to be even more invasive than last time. And we have actually recorded some extra shows for the bank, for the bag. I have a whole folder on the computer called The Bag that just has 2 podcasts in it for later. And that is one reason why we've also kind of staggered the release to every other week here on the show. And that's just because he's got stuff going on, and I also do as well. I have not made this announcement yet on the podcast. No, I haven't. And Tyler gets to be here for it.
I'm honored.
I got another kid on the way.
Congratulations, my man.
Yeah. And if you hear hesitance in my voice, it's not because I'm not excited for another kid. It's because this is an oops.
It happens.
Yeah, I'm so glad it's happened after I've already had one.
Right.
I already know what to expect. It's just a lot of different things have kind of been going on, and it always happens at the least exciting moment. Or like it always happens when you're already planning on other things, and you have a loose plan, a loose idea of what you want to accomplish in the next couple of years, and well, that's kind of been thrown off now because we got one coming on. I shouldn't say we don't know what it is yet. Due in October.
Wow. That'll be here before you know it.
I know, man. I know. And she's going to have to be pregnant for more of the summer this time around, which is, I'm sure, going to be a blast. But that's kind of what's going on in my world. It's going to affect the show somewhat. I'm not sure exactly how. We're going to figure out when we get there. So, but Tyler, we have been planning on having you on. You messaged me earlier in January about coming back on to talk about some of these great games that have come out and what we've been playing. And we had to move some planets around, align them to get you back here on the show. I'm so glad to have you back on. And what have you been playing that you've wanted to talk about?
Well, the last time that I was on the show and towards the tail end of 2018, you and Mike and I had talked a lot about kind of getting together and powwowing basically this first quarter, because there was so much hitting the market in such a short amount of time between Resident Evil and Kingdom Hearts, and then you've got kind of one that I expected to be great, but not a lot. There's a franchise that a lot of people still aren't, I don't want to say educated because that's not the right word, but not really exposed to with the Metro series. That game released, and I haven't seen a bad review for any of it. Most people are saying that it's the best game in the franchise so far. And then obviously Kingdom Hearts 3, and then Anthem. You had Apex come out of nowhere. Not a lot of people expected it to challenge Fortnite or PUBG the way that it has. And then you've got Sekiro coming out towards the end of this month, I believe. You've got Days Gone coming out next month, starting quarter 2 there. So there was so much packed into the first couple months that I couldn't contain myself, and I had to be back on the show. But not an expectation of myself, because I'm pretty sure I've gone on record on your guys' show saying that I would never be caught playing a Battle Royale game. And I have played Apex an unhealthy amount since it released. I was adamant against it for, let's say, the first week that it was released. And one of my good friends, he talked me into playing it, much like one of my other good friends talked me into playing Rocket League. And my good friend Andy Dietrich, right there in the chat, he's the one that talked me into Apex. And from about the third time that I played it, I was hooked. I was a big fan of Titanfall, of the Titanfall series. Mm-hmm. Seeing what Respawn could do to that game, going from the first game to the sequel, was just incredible. And now they've got a little bit more capital, and this free game is better than a lot of the games that I've paid $60 to $80 for in the last 2 years. So I can't say enough about it.
Well, I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff about it too. There's a coworker that we have working with us right now. He's a second shifter. He's on days until May, I think. And he is loving this game. He is trying to get us to play it. It's not that I don't want to play it. It's a matter of I have no way to play it. Mm-hmm. Because I no longer have any online services on my consoles.
Really?
Yeah, they're gone. I disabled it because I had not been using it. I have not been utilizing the online modes. I haven't been doing anything with that. It just got to a point where I really haven't been caring too much about the free games that I've been getting on PlayStation Plus. And as before, I've let it go before, and I'll get it back at some other point. But yeah, this guy, his name's Kevin. He's digging it. Yeah, he loves quick stuff like that he can just jump into. He's got kids. So at 3 o'clock in the morning when he's getting up and before work, he's just been sitting there and playing some Apex, and he's told me all about it, and I'm like, I'm very happy for them, because this kind of came out of nowhere when this dropped. And Respawn is are they the studio that is making the new Star Wars Fallen Order? Is that the studio that's doing that?
I believe so. I'm not 100%, but I'm more than 50% sure that Respawn is the one doing it.
Nate dropping by to say hello. Nate, thank you for tuning in, my man. I'll be seeing you on Monday. Mm-hmm. I'll be seeing you on Monday, my friend. I'm so excited. Metallica.
Unfortunately, I am unable to attend Metallica. I had access to tickets, but I can't miss class that day, so I will be unable to attend. So I'll be living vicariously through you. I hope you guys really enjoy the greatest rock band of all time's performance.
Oh, dude, I can't wait. It'll be the first time I've ever seen them. I had a chance 10 years ago to see them in Indy, and they haven't been back since. Of course, they came to Chicago, and tickets for this one was a little outrageous, but I was actually had the money at least for one ticket to be able to go. Whereas in Chicago, it was like, hey, I could get nosebleeds, but who wants to get nosebleeds, man?
Right.
Andrew replies in chat, Respawn is doing Fallen Order. I've also heard that the writer one of the writers for KOTOR 2 and Fallout New Vegas from our good friends over at Obsidian is penning. He is writing the Fallen Order.
Yeah, I saw that the other day, and I want to touch a little bit on like how unhappy. I was so excited for this first quarter for the industry this year, and most of that was because of the hype for a lot of the games coming out, but a lot of it was from disappointments that I had in games like Destiny. I went into Anthem with a really, really open mind. BioWare is not going to let EA disappoint me the way that Activision and Bungie did twice with Destiny. Bethesda turned its back on a lot of fans with Fallout 76, and I'm still pretty salty about that. I paid $80 for something that I played for 10 minutes and I'll never play again. I feel like Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino. I'm the get off your lawn guy, or get off my lawn guy, because BioWare has such a storied history, and for people like you and myself, BioWare are a lot of the reason why we fell in love with modern gaming. I'm a classic. Hold on a second, I'm being visited by my child. Oh, thank you for showing me your pajamas. It's all right. Thank you. Okay, we're on a podcast.
My kid wants to podcast with me all the time, by the way.
She just recently started doing it, so
that's cool.
I'm really happy that she's not like, oh, there's a camera, I don't want to be in front of it,
Say hi.
Say hi. Okay. But yeah, so BioWare is so important for a big portion of the fan base, and then you have the people that were not quite teenagers yet when Mass Effect 3 came out, and then when certain people got disappointed by Andromeda, I myself not being one of them. I'm very aggravated at EA, like a lot of fans are, because EA killed the most important franchise in my gaming library to make Anthem. And then Respawn takes a little bit of EA cash, releases the game for free, and it's one of the most fun games that I've played in the last 5 years. So we're in a weird place in the industry right now, I feel like.
We are definitely, and with talking about Anthem, I mean, Anthem was made by the main studio of BioWare, and now the only one, because they killed BioWare Montreal, which developed Andromeda. And the only negative thing I can really say about Andromeda is it was just too big for its britches, where it was like, we want you to have this big, open, and vast world full of things to do, and it kind of gets repetitive over a time. And to where, like, I liked the game. I thought it was like a good, solid 8, right? And when it comes to, like, wanting to replay it, like I've replayed the other Mass Effects so many times, I haven't really been quick to jump into it just because I have to redo all of the mindless, mind-numbing stuff through the planets where you just got to drive all the way over there to do this one thing, and you go all the way back over there, leave the planet, get another quest, come all the way back to that one planet. There are aspects I loved about Andromeda, and in fact, Andromeda, I don't want to put too much stock on reviews, but reviewed better than Anthem. And I did play the big open beta for Anthem. I played it with your co-host Blaine, good old Blaine Tyner from Podcastrophe, and my co-host Mike. We all got grouped together and played it. And later Andrew, leaving us now, but it was everything that I thought that it was going to be, and that was, the gameplay is really good. From what I played, I went right into it. It felt right at home for me. It felt like, Mass Effect style gameplay turned up to 11, where you can fly around and do all this crazy stuff. But it was the fact that, you know, the actual gameplay was reliant on the multiplayer type thing, where like, okay, so Blaine, Mike, and I were all together. We were all in a party. We could all talk to each other. But, you know, there are times where, like, you're going to be just with people going all around, you're doing something, and then if you're with random people, they just fly off. And you're like, wait, what do I do? That's the main gameplay experience if you're playing with other people. I don't want that. I'm not a dude who wants to take my, you know, spend time playing with other people to enjoy a story. You know, and I knew in my head it's exactly what it's going to be. Little did I know that Anthem's story is kind of bare bones. Mike's not happy about it. Mike got it for free on PC because he bought a new graphics card, just like Blaine did. And he's played through the story. He just beat the story, and he goes, "There's a lot of story and lore. It's all in codex. It's all in that stuff, but nothing. Like, you are left wondering about a lot of stuff. You have to go look it up yourself." And it doesn't sound like the BioWare that I used to know.
Right.
You know, and I completely understand why they would want to make a game like this, because, you know, they are a studio that has specialized in making great single-player RPG experiences. They've dabbled in some multiplayer. They've made some pretty cool multiplayer experiences with Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, Dragon Age's multiplayer, and even Andromeda's.
Very, very successful multiplayer in Mass Effect.
Yes.
That was something that a lot of fans had kind of condemned before they even experienced it. I don't think anyone expected Mass Effect 3's multiplayer to be as successful and or fun as it was. And I know you played the hell out of it. I played it a lot, you know, much like I'm playing Apex right now, probably a lot more than I should have. But I don't understand. Okay, let me go back a little bit. I understand, like you do, why BioWare made this game. I understand EA's stance on the market currently that single player is not the route that studios and developers should go. In their mind, it's a dead experience. They want to capitalize on as many people as often as they can. So I totally understand the business model that they're trying to pursue. I don't understand how, as a business, making decisions that have to make business sense, you can look at what every mistake that Bungie and Activision made with Destiny, and then go on to Battlefield 5, which, you know, the gameplay might have been fun, but it sold horrendously. I mean, EA keeps killing all these franchises and studios that fans want more and more of. I know I've been involved in some message boards and forums and, you know, some discussion outlets here lately, a lot more than I usually am. And there are still people wanting the Dead Space franchise to be resurrected because it was the only, or at least the most mainstream space survival horror game, you know, that we've ever had. There are still people salty about that studio being killed by EA. So EA has all of this caution tape in front of them saying, you know, we've got arguably one of our most popular studios, one of our most successful studios in BioWare. Should we make this game? I don't think that you can ever make the argument that new IP is necessary, because I think no one can argue that every decade you have to inject some new IP somewhere, otherwise the market will be incredibly stale. You know, then all of us fans will be saying, "Man, I got that 5 times already." You know, totally the opposite of what we experience with Call of Duty, because people just keep buying that crap. But I don't understand how they can look at all that caution tape and just plunge headlong through it and say, we'll make some money on microtransactions.
Now, like it's funny how EA is so multiplayer centric and how they see that as a future business model. Meanwhile, in one calendar year, I'm gonna just like start a year ago, January, and go through the entire year and look at how many single player experiences sold killer.
Absolutely.
God of War, Spider-Man, Red Dead Redemption, even though they launched an online mode too, but that did not launch that way for the first month. They sold 17 million copies in a month.
Right.
It killed it. Absolutely killed it. So for anybody to say that single player experiences are not profitable, they're wrong. They're completely wrong. They are definitely profitable. I think there is a definite market for that, and if anybody proves that, not only those games that I just mentioned, but also look at pretty much every Nintendo property that gets put out as majorly a single player, like all the Mario games, all the Zelda games, all the stuff like that.
Right. The only big ones that are pretty much multiplayer centric are
Smash.
Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, things like
Splatoon.
Mario Tennis Aces. Their spin on the esports market. It's always got to involve Mario or their main IP. But
Sure. No, but like I was I knew what Anthem was going to be. I saw it from the get-go. I was hoping it wasn't going to be just a Destiny clone. It is fun to play. I had fun playing it, but I cannot justify spending $60 for an experience that I'm mostly going to want to play by myself. And that experience is going to be very different. And I cannot devote that much time anymore. I have to pick and choose where I play my games. I have a life. I have a job. I have a kid.
Now you've got another one on the way.
No shit. It's awesome, but it's also like, here we go. But that's going to cut into it as well. To the point where we're trying to save money, and I'm looking at all these awesome games that are supposed to release this year, and I'm going, gonna have to wait. But let's look at, Anthem came out, and to say that it stumbled out of the gate is an understatement. The game is not selling very well at all. It sold a third of what Destiny sold, maybe even a half, from that launch. Also, its first weekend, sales of both Resident Evil 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3 outsold Anthem in its first week. Or first weekend. But
I read an article this morning, kind of in preparation for this show, and I'm not sure how much truth there is to the statement, but as of right now, of the modern BioWare era, Anthem is their lowest selling game in history.
Yeah, and it's, from what I understand, it's not that it's like selling completely terrible. It's starting to pick up some steam, but I really feel like some people were waiting because of how they rolled it out. With some people were playing it early, people who had the EA access and all that kind of stuff. The people who pre-ordered it got a little early, and then the people were just waiting. They got the reviews. Like, there's one thing to get the reviews, and then you're wanting to hear what the gamer says, what the streamer says.
Right.
What are they saying about it? Is this a game that I want to go pick up and try out? And I feel like that is the case for this, but there's also another big controversy that just propped up within the last week, and that is the issue of it potentially bricked a console, maybe multiple consoles, but with a crashing bug. And this crashing bug is actually on all three consoles that it's on. Of course, your Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. But in the terms of PlayStation, it's causing it to hard reset, and basically it's causing it to just glitch out to the point where it just hard resets itself like you unplugged it, and it has to rebuild the database, which is not, it's not really healthy to keep doing that to it.
Right.
And in one reported case, you had to pretty much, they had to reboot it in safe mode. And in at least one or two cases or whatever, it bricked it where they can't do anything with it. From what I understand, there was an article released saying that Sony was giving out digital refunds for anybody who bought the game, no questions asked. I know that to be false because a friend of mine and Blaine's tried to get a refund and they told him no. But there are people who have gotten refunds for the game because they don't want, because it's a risk. They don't want their console to be broken by a game. And PlayStation was reportedly doing that until I heard otherwise from a personal experience. But EA has responded saying that there's going to be a fix for this coming within the week, and that they personally, with their testing, have not had any console brick. They said if it freezes up, go do a hard reset and let it restart, and there should be no issues.
I think all of us, especially fans of studios like Bethesda, in this day and age, we expect, especially at the launch of a game, to experience bugs and glitches. And, these games, even if they have long development cycles, towards the end of their development are rushed so much to meet deadlines. I don't think that you can be a fan of modern gaming and not expect or prepare yourself for that a little bit, especially when we have massive day one patches and stuff like that now. I don't get up in arms like a lot of people do when I go to install my disc and I've got, a 40 or 50 gig day one patch. I'm okay with that because that shows that there's still, that even though it's launch day of the game, they're still putting the time in to make sure that I can have a somewhat enjoyable experience. I saw this report about the bricking come out, the day that it was, headlined, and then almost immediately after that, I saw that, well, it's not happening to Xbox. Maybe you shouldn't play on PlayStation. I saw a little bit of kind of corporate espionage or subterfuge going on there. And then within 24 hours, I saw that it was happening to Xbox too. So this is a situation where all of the apprehension that I had for the game, and then I played the beta like you did. I played it with some people on Xbox, and I did not enjoy the gameplay. My frame rate was about, so when I played the first couple days of the beta, it looked like the game, which is supposed to be beautiful. I'm playing it, as close to true 4K as I can get, and it looks like my kid drew it with a crayon because the frame rate was so low. And I don't know if that was an issue with my personal console, my internet at the time, with bandwidth getting hogged and whatnot. I can't say because I don't have that information. But I felt that the controls were very clunky at first. I almost felt like I was playing a Rockstar game. And then I played the game for 45 minutes and did not know how to fly.
Oh, really? See, that's the first thing I figured out how to do. I was like, how do you do it? And it was like, boom, and I did it. It was.
I jumped into a mission, and I was like, okay, let's do this. So we flew right off the pad, and then we landed, and then we did some stuff, and everybody with me got up and flew away, and I was standing there like, okay, well, I'm going to run, and then I couldn't catch up to him, so I didn't have an opportunity to even figure out how to fly because I just kept getting teleported farther and farther into the mission. And I have an uber long load screen every time that happened. So my first experience with Anthem, something that I was going into very open-minded, was not very good. So I watched Blaine play it some. I started watching some other YouTubers and streamers play it, and I can appreciate how pretty the game is. Watching it in 4K on my TV, I can appreciate how quick and responsive and tactile the gameplay is. What I can't appreciate is like 10-minute load times that are unnecessary with like a cartoon, just staring at a blank cartoon. At least in Skyrim, I could spin an object, and zoom in and out. Like I can look at something.
You remember the long installs for the original MGS4? Before you can install the full game, they made you wait for 2 minutes, and there was just Snake sitting there smoking a cigarette, and then he would like tap it and would be like, "Don't litter, don't be like Snake."
Right.
Yeah, no, the load times were pretty ridiculous. The gameplay to me felt, yeah, it was a little clunky, but it also felt very Mass Effect-y to me.
Right.
Where it was right in with, I mean, the flying was a new mechanic, but like everything as far as like figuring out your little moves, your little powers or grenades or whatever, that felt pretty quick to me. That kind of fell in. I had a couple of frame drops, but not many. The game looked pretty good for me. I was playing on PlayStation, but overall, it just left me like, well, this would be fun to play with friends, but that's not an experience that I like to do very often.
Well, if Anthem had the caliber of story that any of BioWare's last 8 titles have had,
yeah.
Even as weak as some people say that Andromeda's story was, if the story was comparable to any of those, then I would love to play that with my friends. You know, if the game would run on my console. But when I'm choosing a free to play game over a game from my favorite studio of all time, that speaks volumes, in my opinion.
After like you, I went into it open, but I also didn't pre-order it. I wasn't going to do that, not because of Andromeda. This is entirely separate. I was looking at this going, I don't want to play this kind of game.
Right.
It's up to them to make me want to play this kind of game. That's kind of where I was going in. And I played the beta, and I'm just like, there's nothing here to make me want to spend $60 on.
Well, and so once I started watching gameplay streams and stuff like that, I said, you know what? I'm going to find a streamer that is starting right out of the tutorial and is planning on doing a full game live stream. And I'm going to watch it. I'm going to spoil myself of all of the big plot points and all that. And if watching this, I have enough emotional attachment to the story that I'm seeing play out, then I will say, you know what, BioWare, I'm going to do it because I want you to survive. And I watched the game from start to finish, and I had none of that.
And that's a shame. That is a shame. I did not buy this out of necessarily protest. I'm not trying to tell, but I am voting with my wallet and saying I don't want to play this kind of game. That's what I'm telling them.
Right.
And I also want BioWare to continue to exist. It makes me worry slightly because, after this game, it's like they still say they've already announced Dragon Age. They said Mass Effect has, there's something cooking there. So they're gonna make me look their way again at their next project. But after seeing this, after hearing about the story, and then hearing how kind of just empty it is for a BioWare story,
right?
I want to note that I'm not trying to say that bash it without having truly experienced it, but for what they're known for and what they've now produced, it makes me worry about their more story intensive games like those other two that I mentioned. And basically I want to get a blue trucker hat, and I want to start, I don't know if I can pull the funds together. I know I got a kid on the way. Maybe we can try and get this crowdfunded. I want to get a blue trucker hat, and I want it to say "Make BioWare Great Again," and we're going to start a campaign on Twitter, hashtag it, "Make BioWare Great Again."
You've got your first GoFundMe or Kickstarter supporter right here, because so I don't know if you guys have talked about this on the show or not, but one of the additional reasons why I'm so salty about Anthem, if I need any more, is, do you remember reading in the last month and a half the report of BioWare trying to make KOTOR 3 multiple times, and EA has basically put the hammer down on that and say, nope, you're not doing it.
Yes, they even went so far to make a quick concept of what it could be or what it could look like. And yes, I've heard that, and that kills me. That kills me. That is something that fans have wanted. That is something that I have wanted. Something that you have wanted. Literally everybody who has played and enjoyed one or both of those KOTOR games, they wanted BioWare to return to it. They wanted them to, like, more than Tor. I want to say that because they did do Tor. They did do another Star Wars property, but more than that, a direct Star Wars single-player RPG. I said this when it came out, when Inquisition came out. Buddy, you take this engine, you put a Star Wars skin on it, you've got a damn KOTOR in the making just with this.
Absolutely.
And I'm not so picky. That's all I would want. If people said, this is exactly like Inquisition, I'd be like, yes, but it's Star Wars. Because it reminded me, as I was playing it, I'm like, this could be Star Wars, and I would be even happier right now if I had KOTOR 3 in my hands. But to hear that, yes, that was disheartening. Yeah, very disheartening. And I do worry about BioWare coming out of this. I am also going to give them props because they're not going to give up on Anthem. They're not going to quit supporting it. Unlike what happened with other titles that have come out, like Battlefield or
Andromeda.
Andromeda specifically, because all the DLC for that got canceled, including the Quarian arc storyline, which that pissed me off and got turned into a book.
I'm still pissed about it.
But I misspoke about Battlefield. There is the reason they said in an earnings call why Battlefield 5 failed is because it didn't launch with the Battle Royale mode, which is coming out in April. I heavily disagree with that. I don't think that's the case at all. I think people voted with their wallet with that game and said we're going to go elsewhere. But just the other one, the Star Wars Battlefront, when that came out and fell right in its face, they pretty much pulled a lot of support for that. There's still some stuff getting rolled out for that, but quite literally, it's nowhere near the level of what it could be,
or what it was promised to be. I mean, I think that's the biggest part about it, because when Battlefront failed, that's when all the microtransaction controversy was happening, and then that put that game even in an even more negative light than it already was because of how bad it was.
Yeah.
I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit and actually give EA and BioWare a little bit of kudos. I don't think anyone can say I don't think anyone can say that Anthem is not a beautiful game. It's one of the prettiest games as far as environments and textures and lighting that I've seen. I mean, it's comparable to games like God of War and Spider-Man, all the big hits of last year for sure. And lost my train of thought. EA said that they were going to make this game. BioWare had so much turnover and controversy last year with Casey Hudson coming back in, and the studio's in turmoil. They shut down a studio. Putting the console bricking aside, they didn't really provide a game that was different than what they promised. They've given everybody exactly what they said they were going to. It's a looter shooter. It's a pretty looter shooter. The focus is on multiplayer and playing with your friends. And I can't, in good conscience, fault EA or BioWare for delivering on what they promised.
Mm-hmm. Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that, like, BioWare, in this sense, gave EA exactly what they asked for, probably. What they've been wanting in these big multiplayer games. And, taking a genre, which we now have two, like big ones, Destiny and The Division, in this style, and adding a third, which there's room for, in Anthem. They gave them what they wanted, and lo and behold, not necessarily, by just general standard, but it didn't deliver based on hardcore BioWare fan standards.
Right.
And people are sort of, rejecting it on that front. But there are definitely a lot of people who are enjoying it for what it is.
Mm-hmm. So I also want to give props to Casey Hudson for coming back to, and I'm 99% these are his words, but going home. Going back to the studio that he fell in love with and helped make successful, and trying to resurrect it like the phoenix from the ashes and make BioWare great again, like we talked about. Having so much controversy from the last two Mass Effect games and still being enthusiastic about a project that you basically had to save with Anthem, you got to give that guy a lot of respect. And with all of the Anthem controversy right now is, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, I don't think that matters. I think we need to focus on, we've got Dragon Age coming up, whenever that may be, whether it's this gen console, next gen console. I don't think it matters. I think there's enough BioWare fans that still have faith in that franchise and want kind of the overarching story that they started with Dragon Age Origins to finally come to a close, and I think that's going to deliver on that. I want to give props to BioWare for finally figuring out how to make the Frostbite engine work, because they have struggled with that since EA rolled that engine out and said, this is what you guys are going to use to make your stuff. It's all going to look great. And they have struggled with that engine from its inception, and they finally figured out how to make it work. So, for the most part anyway. Mm-hmm. And then with Dragon Age on the horizon, the potential for KOTOR 3 to maybe be thought about now that Anthem is struggling a little bit and BioWare can say, hey, look, we've wanted to make this, fans want this can make you some more money if you just let us make it. And then I've also heard some talks about the company that owns the rights to Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, working with EA and BioWare on resurrecting Baldur's Gate.
Oh, that would be interesting. I also want to give props to the heads over at BioWare, like Casey Hudson and all them, for in the midst of all this Anthem release, okay, with the average rating be a 6 to a 6.5, which is, I want to reiterate, we live in an era right now that if a game doesn't get a 9 or a 10, it's crap.
Absolutely.
So a 6 is not a bad game. It's average. It's teetering on good. And yet we just crucify these games, So when you look at how the heads over at Bethesda, how have they reacted with the fallout from Fallout 76? Have we heard from them at all? No. We've heard nothing.
Not at all.
From PR people, the great, Todd Howard hasn't said a word about this, and yet Casey Hudson from day one came out and said, we're not giving up on Anthem. There are a lot of people who are enjoying this game, and we want to make this game the best game that we can make for those guys and for everybody else as well. And I really think that unlike Fallout 76, which probably at this point cannot be salvaged, Anthem can probably still be added upon and made a greater game. And, much like what happens with, I think it might be, it's definitely a rare case, but when you have a game get such a revival like Rainbow Six Siege, could that happen with Anthem? I hope. I doubt it, but I hope. Could this be a case like where the developers don't give up on it, even though it didn't deliver in this case with No Man's Sky, it didn't deliver on its promise. They didn't give up on it until they did. Until they presented you, this is what we originally wanted this game to be. Thank you for not giving up on us. I hope that BioWare can do that with Anthem. Will we see it? I don't know.
Well, there's nothing but positivity, I think, coming from BioWare. There's nothing but potential coming from BioWare's perspective, because if you look at all of their titles over the last 10 years, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, both Dragon Age games, I wish I could throw Andromeda in on this too, but that got scrapped, obviously. But every one of those games has had really, really good, engaging DLC. Mm-hmm. So BioWare has the ability to put out top-notch quality DLC. And if you look at a game like The Witcher 3, which didn't need anything else, it was 100% complete. It delivered on every forefront. they came out with the Blood and Wine expansion and then doubled down on everything that they had already did. So I like the direction that you took that. BioWare and EA have the potential to say, you know what? All of you people that gave this game an average score, we have spent the last 6 months working on this. Give this a shot, and then re-review the game, and then tell us what you think. Mm-hmm. And they have the potential to not necessarily totally rework the game, but to provide even, above and beyond what they promised from the get-go when the game was announced.
So, I want to take a break here to give Blaine the attention that he wants.
Thank you.
He has been bugging us to put your glasses on. Leo Murphy, yes, Baldur's Gate was in fact awesome. But yeah, Blaine wants attention, so we're going to give him just his quick thing of attention. We weren't going to let him. So often has he come on here and just as I'm in the middle of talking, he pops up with something and it just like takes my brain over and it just cuts it off. So I'm glad that we didn't let that happen. But no, I do have a lot of hope. For BioWare, from everything that I've heard, they have actually come out and said, just like I said, nothing's going to happen to us. We have a great relationship with EA. They're not going to come in and hack us. Of course, that could change. That could just be like what they believe now, and in 6 months down the road, EA is going to be like, we're going to lay you guys off. Mm-hmm. EA is heartless. They want money, and that is the end of the line. Now, So when it comes to Microsoft acquisitions, right? There's a rumor that they could be making another acquisition. That's a group that I wish would have bought BioWare from the get-go.
As long as you and I have been friends, we have 100% agreed on that viewpoint. We'd be in a totally different industry right now.
So Blaine also wants us to say hi.
Hi, Nazira.
To his daughter. Hello. Thank you for watching. And I really feel that Microsoft would be a great place for them to be because, yes, they're going to work together. They're going to get funding. But I really think Microsoft is going to let them make the game and kind of be more of a just like an Overwatch, or maybe try this, maybe do this, maybe that, instead of being like, no, you guys have to make this kind of game.
Right.
I really don't see Microsoft as that kind of overlord, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended for Mass Effect.
Well, I kind of look at Microsoft right now as the Google of the industry because, hey, if you've got ideas and you're a free thinker and, we want everyone around us to better our brand, and we don't just want you here to make us money and toil like slaves. And with all the acquisitions that Microsoft has made in the last 2 years, you and I have talked at length on this show before. I've talked about it on Podcastrophe. Microsoft was in the trash can for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And with the management team that they have, all of the people that are working with all of the studios that they have acquired and their original, stuff that they owned, they have worked day and night really, really hard to bring back the fans that they've lost. And, I turned my back on Sony when I probably shouldn't have. Sony earned my business again with the PS4, and I'm really glad that that's what I went with first. And then Microsoft has, I have a better opinion of Microsoft now than I did before I turned my back on Sony.
You know what? My opinion of Xbox has never been higher.
Absolutely.
And that is coming off of, I said I would never own the Xbox One when that got announced. But really quick here, I want to read this article from our friends over at comicbook.com, owned by the great GameSpot.
Okay.
There's a new Inside Xbox coming out here this month, and it's supposed to feature Age of Empires and its developer Relic Entertainment, and rumored by a leaker known as Clobril on Twitter, who has been known to leak certain Xbox announcements that have been that have come to fruition, that possibly they could be adding Relic Entertainment to their list under the newly named Xbox Game Studios.
Huh.
To their ranks. So that's kind of interesting and cool that they would be adding that development crew. They used to be owned by THQ back in the day, and then they've been kind of independent since then. So I know Microsoft, they've been going out and they've been trying, they scooped up Obsidian, they scooped up Ninja Theory, some really great developers there. And it's going to be exciting to see what they do under that umbrella. Of course, Obsidian has the game The Outer Worlds. That's going to come out on multiple systems, but that'll probably be the last one because after that, the next project will be under the new stewardship of Xbox Game Studios. So who knows? Maybe that's a rumor right now. That may come to pass, but I have no doubt that there's going to be even more studios that they try to scoop up because they, just like we have said before to each other, not on a podcast, they need to build like their roster. They need that is one thing that Sony has. They have a hell of a roster of a lot of different studios that make awesome games. And since the PS3 era, they have all been delivering, on that with great exclusives. And that's one thing that Microsoft has lacked is great exclusives, even though that term is now loose because it includes PC.
Timed exclusives.
It includes the console exclusive to Xbox console, but also with their streaming service, they want to be everywhere. So it'll let Xbox games are going to be on here. There's the rumor about them trying to get Xbox onto Switch, which has been kind of debunked, but it could still happen. You could get, Forza, Halo, Gears, and all these first-party Xbox games on Switch through Game Pass streaming, which would be insane. But Xbox is taking this to the next level, and the rumor is we're getting new console announcements at E3 this year with the next generation Xbox hardware. Now, just going to that for a second, there's the rumor that we're going to get the top end, the new Xbox 4K Ultimate Machine, and then they're going to do a lesser version of that. That's not going to be pushing for it. It's going to have everything else but the same GPU. It's not going to have the same GPU because one's going to be pushing the 4K and one's going to be pushing 1080p. A cheaper alternative, and the cheaper alternative is rumored to have no disk drive.
Is it going to be 1080p or is it going to be 2160?
2160 is 4K, and 1440 is in between, like kind of a 2K. So it may be pushing 1440.
Okay.
But the rumor is that the lower cost one is going to have no disk drive, and it's going to be more focused towards your Call of Duty, NBA 2K players, your more casual gamers. But my theory is that they're introducing it as a way to get the diskless systems out there, right? As a way of we're still going to have physical copies for all of you guys. If you want the higher end, get that. But then at the end of this generation, they'll be like, well, guys, we've already conditioned half of you, if not three-quarters of you, to get this one over here. So the next one, if we release one, is not going to have one at all. And then just today, you brought up this little rumor that there's going to be a diskless version of the Xbox One S, hailed as the all-digital version, coming to stores, or at least the Microsoft Store, with pre-order starting in April, with the release in May. And you brought something to my attention that I didn't know, is that Microsoft stores are going to be accepting a program where you can bring in your physical copies of games in exchange to a download code for you to get those games that you have bought physically onto these all-digital machines, which is interesting and awesome that they're doing that, because what a way to tilt somebody into an all-digital future as a way to have an exchange program, right?
I think it's really, really, really smart, and it's good play on Microsoft's part. I'm one of those people, much like you and Mike and a lot of our friend base. I don't particularly want games as a service, but I can say this: I'm getting ready to cancel cable. This will be the first time in my life that I've never had cable, and I'm going to replace that with the streaming services that I currently have, but additional ones where So that'll be the majority of the media that's consumed in my house will be on a service basis. If I have to do it, I think there's enough, how do I want to say that? There's enough of the market that's already been figured out, especially with Games Pass and, PlayStation Now, however you feel about that, that it's not going to be, we're not going to have to be Clint Eastwood yelling at people to get off our lawn. I think it's not going to be as hard as everyone thinks it's going to be. I never thought that I would go out of my way to get games digitally, and there's been a lot of games the last 6 to 8 months, a year or so, that I've said, you know what? I'm on my couch. I don't really want to get up and drive to Walmart or GameStop or what have you to buy this, because I don't, I definitely don't think it's going to be a kind of a collector's niche. And I've spent the money and bought it digitally, so I've gone against the stance that I had where I don't want them to maximize profit anymore by selling me a digital item. But I'm also the guy that'll spend $10 and buy cosmetic DLC for Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. So
yeah, it's kind of a double standard type of deal. I know that Mike just recently got Games Pass for the PC. He's loving Forza Horizon 4, and they keep advertising the DLC, which you can purchase for the stream version of the game that you've downloaded. And he is tempted every single time he plays it, which would be funny. He'd be buying digital content for a game he doesn't own.
Right.
So that's where the thing is for him. He's like, I have no reason to own Forza yet because I'm still have my Game Pass subscription on. I'm probably going to keep it, but then I'm buying digital content for a game that isn't mine.
When Game Pass was launched, you basically convinced me to get it. It didn't take you very much, or it didn't take me very much convincing on your part. But I got it, and I told myself, I'll have it for, maybe a month, maybe 2 or 3 months, and I'll kind of see how it goes. And I have had it since that month, since I used my free month and I got the next month for $1. I have had it ever since. I've gone back and played games from my childhood like Banjo-Kazooie. And I told you about the time that I played Metal Slug for like 9 hours straight. I got farther in the game than I ever had in history, or in my personal history. I've got a lot of personal enjoyment out of Games Pass, the last 6-8 months. And I don't see myself letting that go anytime soon. So if Microsoft continues to make sound business decisions the way that they are, I'm at this point right now where any studio that they want to acquire, regardless of who it is, they've got my support.
Same.
I don't think that they're going to be able to pull anyone away from Sony. That's just not smart business. But with as friendly as Nintendo and Microsoft are being with each other, who's to say that Microsoft and Nintendo don't partner on something down the road? Microsoft and Nintendo are pushing this pushing this perspective right now and trying to convince Sony that we're all sharing this. I mean, you say that, everyone says that we're competing against each other. We all own a finite amount of the market share. You can sell all the consoles you want, Sony. We're doing pretty successful after everything that we went through just by letting people pay $10 a month and have games. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where the market goes between the hardware and the software the next 2 to 5 years, because I totally agree with the majority of people's stance that this upcoming console generation that we have will be the last one.
It's going to change. It's definitely going to change, and there's rumors that we're going to get a PS5 announcement this year. For release of next year. Same with the Xbox rumors, but there's also some rumors about the final three PS4 exclusives. And of course, I'm talking about Death Stranding, The Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima. Games that were heavily featured at last year's E3 for Sony. Sony's not being there this year. That's because of the rumor they're going to have their own thing this year, possibly with their console reveal. Now, there
Is
are.
this, sorry to interrupt you, but is this something additional to PlayStation Experience?
Well, there will be a PSX next year or this year. Yes.
Yeah.
The rumor is that it's going to happen probably near the end of the summer,
Okay.
and it's going to be like, hey, kind of like when they did the PS4 reveal, where like, this is the kind of stuff that's going to be on it. Here's maybe a game or two, and here's the updates that we've done. Stay tuned for PSX, where you get the mother load for what we got coming for the launch or whatever. And then, of course, there's probably going to be news about these 3 games, because these 3 games are going to be the swan song of the PS4 as far as exclusivity goes. I don't know of any other games that are coming out that are exclusive to the console as far as first party. And the release of these games could vary based on their status of how close they are to being complete. I just saw today that Hideo Kojima confirmed that Death Stranding is running a little behind.
I saw that as well.
And that there was a rumor that Death Stranding was going to launch in June, and then I've heard later on, I just saw a rumor that said Ghost of Tsushima is going to launch on August 30th, which could just be a placeholder date. I've heard rumor that Last of Us Part 2 is going to launch in October.
Okay.
And so, with that being said, I've also heard a rumor earlier in January that all 3 of these games could be released by the end of the year. But of course, if you're Sony, you don't want to launch these 3 games that close to each other. With the crowded market, you want to let them breathe.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. You've got 3 games here right now that are going to be heavy hitters. That's just what they're expected to be. Wouldn't you, business sense, I've thrown that term out a lot during the show. Wouldn't you want to space that out and hit one about every quarter?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You've got the beginning. So you've got quarter 1, which is normally a big quarter. Quarter 2 is normally pretty quiet because that's the beginning of the fiscal year for a lot of companies. They're carrying over sales and whatnot from quarter 1. And then you've got the summer with, all the games conferences. And then you go into the fall, and then that's when you start hitting it real hard again for the fall and then the holiday season. So as of right now, just me as a fan, if we got these 3 games in any order every 3 months for the rest of the year, I'm going to buy every one of them day one.
Right. And the thing is that it's kind of weird that we don't have actual release windows for any of these.
Right.
With all 3 of these games, the rumors are they're getting pretty freaking close. With people with close to Death Stranding saying that they're finishing up mocaps and voices last month, which means they're pretty much putting the final touches and putting the last stuff into the game. Last of Us Part 2 composer said you're going to see this game sooner than you think. I haven't heard anything about like that from Ghost of Tsushima, but other than the rumored release date. But like you said, it depends on when they want to launch the PS5. They probably don't want to launch one of these games too close to that. But of course, then there's the backwards compatibility rumors with at least the 4 going all the way back to 1 with the patent, where these games are going to be like, hey, all these great games that we just launched last year, they're enhanced for the PS5 with 60 frames 4K. As great as they're going to look, they're like day one that you put these games in, these 3 games, along with this short list of other PS4 games, are going to get a day 1 patch to look and play better on the new console. And I think that's definitely going to happen, but let's pretend that PS5 is not going to launch until holiday 2020, which that's what I think. That, to me, that sounds pretty sound. Even if they announce it a whole year early, they're going to build that year full of hype and finish off the PS4 with these 3 games. But then that would leave you with, if they announce the PS5 at the end of the summer, and let's say none of these games have come out yet, all the way into August, right? That leaves you with the fall, the fall of 2019 to release one of these games, whichever one is ready. And then that leads you into the spring of 2020 where you can release the next one and then close out the beginning of the fall with the last one. And then you go into November with your starting lineup for the PS5 And to me, that sounds like a sound decision, but we could see them in any order, and I don't really care which. I just want all these games look amazing, even though with as little as we know about Death Stranding, even the people who are participating in this game don't know what this game is about. They have to have stuff explained to them. That like Kojima's gonna mindfuck us all the way through it, and I know it.
Oh, absolutely.
But like I'm still excited to see what's going on. But it just the more and longer that we get into this year, we're already into the third month of this year, and we still have nothing. They are being very tight-lipped. They did do a trailer with what they have coming for 2019, and all three of these games are featured though.
So let me ask you this: if you are Sony and you're sitting in your boardroom, you're in a conference call with the heads of each of these games. I would imagine they've all pretty much had identical development times, maybe obviously a little bit less for Ghost of Tsushima. But in good conscience, wouldn't you release The Last of Us Part 2 as your final game on the console? I don't see how Sony could say, you know what, for the last game on our most one of our most successful consoles in history, we're going to release new IP. I don't think that's very, very sound business decisions. I think Death Stranding would do a lot better than Ghost of Tsushima. I can't speak. It's a podcast, but Ghost of Tsushima. I think if they trail off with Ghost, that it's not going to do as well as something like The Last of Us Part 2. Mm-hmm. You know, when The Last of Us Part 2 was first starting to be rumored, you and I talked at length about how that was the final swan song for the PlayStation 3, and then they turned right around and said, you know what? Not everyone had access to this. Here it is again, and a little bit better. And I know for a fact I bought it. I know a lot of people bought. Yeah, I mean, even people that bought it on PS3 went ahead and bought it again.
It's that good.
So I think you have no other choice than let The Last of Us, no pun intended, obviously, but be the last of them. I mean, it's got to be.
Well, and I actually agree with you. If I had to pick, I would do Death Stranding this fall, and then Ghosts in the spring, if we're doing that same timetable, and then The Last of Us is the swan song. I would do the exact same thing. Even if Last of Us is further along than Ghosts, I would say push it, because it doesn't need to be here.
Right.
We can wait another year for that, because it'll be worth it. Mm-hmm.
Well, and even let's just go worst case scenario with it, that they had to push The Last of Us 2 to the next gen consoles. I think there's enough of us that are fans of the franchise that we would accept that, because for fans like myself, and I'm not going to speak for you, but when I played The Last of Us, the first one, I didn't rave about that game for the gameplay. I raved about that game for the experience that I had from that opening sequence until the final one. I played that game and was involved in that game a lot more than a lot of the big blockbuster movies that, I've paid $90 to sit in the theater and watch with my $10 movie ticket and my $80 in concessions.
As per Tyler, yeah.
Right. But if Sony and Naughty Dog have to have more time to give me an experience like I had the first go around, I'll wait as long as they need.
Same.
But the guy, I mean, and it's obviously Naughty Dog's going to give us what Naughty Dog's going to give us. I mean,
I have no doubt that this game, even after what we've seen, is going to be intense. Its story is going to be next level. It's going to challenge your emotions. Because that's what these guys do. It's funny because before The Last of Us, I wouldn't say that Naughty Dog had put out a story that was really that gripping.
Right.
But then they did Uncharted 4, which is the most emotional, gripping game of the 4. Which is funny because, like, that series to me was always like the action movie series for Sony. It was like, this is just a fun thing, and we're going to go in there, we're going to have a fun time. He's going to make some jokes and some wisecracks. It's going to be just a fun experience to do. And then Uncharted 4 gave us that plus emotion that they had learned to tell that story with The Last of Us. So this game is going to do that in spades, I guarantee you. I cannot wait for any of these games, to be honest with you, but more so even for that. I want to see more of Ghost of Tsushima because that's the one we've seen the least of, even though we know even less about Death Stranding. It is funny, but I don't want to see any more of The Last of Us. I've seen, I get chills still when I talk about the announcement from PSX with that first one, and then, of course, the gameplay that we saw at E3. So,
if I've got to see anything else from The Last of Us, just give me some more of Ellie playing the guitar. Or of maybe Joel playing the guitar.
I mean,
it can be as bare bones and as simple as it possibly can be, even if it's just the low or the image that you have pulled up for us right now or for the stream, and that guitar tune playing in the background. Like, that's all I need. That's all I need.
I would love there to be like a theatrical type trailer where you hear her or him playing. And you just see quick snippets of cuts from the game or gameplay, like an actual just quick trailer where you don't get any concept. You don't get any like big gameplay sections that you see in like big 20-minute long or 48-minute one like we got with Cyberpunk.
Right.
It's just quick cuts and you don't, out of context, you don't know what they mean. That would be awesome. Moving on, though, we're going to go to Nintendo. And something that I just saw today and I wanted to touch on really quick because it involves Nintendo Labo. They're doing VR where you can be an elephant and take pictures and look at a viewfinder and be a bird and shoot missiles. This is coming out. I'm not sure when. Maybe this fall. They announced it. I'm not sure when, but it's going to be $80 for the whole big set. And then, or you could get the starter one and then buy the two other ones. And it still equals out to be $80, depending on how you want to buy it. But, when the original Labo set came out, I'm like, that's niche, that's cool, that's cool for kids. Don't get it. And now we're getting one where you hold the Switch up to your face to damage your eyes even more. Don't do it, kids.
Well, remember when we were kids and everybody yelled at us, "Get away from the TV! You're gonna hurt your eyes!"
And then there's the meme going around with everybody wearing the VR headsets, where we're just trapped into it. You know what? It's I'm not sure how well with the system specs of the Switch, I'm not sure how well it can actually do VR. So doing it in a way like this, where it's going to be pretty light on it to do it, it'd probably be the only way to. I don't really have much to say about it other than here it is. If you guys want VR on your Switch, it's the way to.
Well, I want to bring this up again because when the Labo was announced, I can't remember if we said it on your guys' show or if you and I just riffed about it at work. But Nintendo is the only organization in the world that could say, you know what? Here's some cardboard. It's more expensive than regular cardboard, but it says Nintendo on it, and you're going to like it. And I go, you know what? By God, I want me some of that cardboard. Nintendo is the only organization in the world that can sell me cardboard that way. And I, as niche as you said, and just one of a kind as the Labo has been since it came out. I think this is really, really cool. I can't do VR because I get really bad motion sickness. Otherwise, I might actually purchase this for my Switch. But I think it's really cool. I think there's a lot of people that are going to see this and go, you know what? I think I want me some of that cardboard too. And then they're going to have a lot of fun with it.
You know what? I mean, as you said, they're the only people that can get away with it. And, and I think I said it to you then. Leave it to Nintendo to have one of the hottest selling consoles. It's going to probably surpass the Xbox One this year. in sales with the Switch. Leave it to them to have something completely successful and getting back on track, maybe so to speak, and to bring back the hardcore gamer to Nintendo. Leave it to them to try something completely out of left field and do something completely different, because they love to innovate and try something new. This is something that utilizes the Switch in ways that most games don't use it for.
You throw in a little bit of black backgrounds and, like some rain-looking ink, and this might be something that looks like Hideo Kojima designed it.
You're right, man. You're right. But the Nintendo thing that I really wanted to discuss with you is, of course, the announcement of the new Pokemon games. Sword and Shield versions coming to Switch this fall. They launched it with a trailer with their own Direct. They didn't put it with the other Direct that came out when they announced the remake of Link's Awakening and all that cool stuff that they had to. That Direct was just killer. I thought they killed it. But then they hit us with this just a few weeks later. What did you think about the trailer that we got, and then just the new Pokemon generation that's coming out with this?
So watching this trailer, I watched it, almost 3 or 4 times consecutively. I had a little bit of downtime at work, so I thought, you know what, Blaine and Matt, have been asking me about this, so why don't I go ahead and put my eyes on it? And initially, I was a little bit put off, unnecessarily, because I really enjoyed Pokemon Let's Go, but towards the end of the game, I was thoroughly fed up with Pokemon Go on my Nintendo Switch. You know what I mean? I was really frustrated that to throw a Pokeball with a button, I had to have the console in handheld mode, or I had to have one Joy-Con by itself. I couldn't put it in the little Joy-Con dock. So I was a little bit frustrated about that, and watching the actual gameplay portions of this trailer, I thought, oh man, I'm going to buy one of these editions no matter what, but oh man, here we go again. I'm going to have to nitpick a Pokemon game, and that's something that I don't want to do. Needless to say, I am very excited. The three starter Pokemon that we have for this generation are actually, I would say, the first starter Pokemon that I've been excited since Generation 2.
It's funny you say that, because Blaine was like, those all look the same to me.
As far as generation to generation,
no, like
these with themselves.
These 3 starters, on these, like how they all looked in design, they all look the exact same to me, and I'm like, well, they're all circular in design, but they all are visibly look different. Right.
Chameleon frog and a rabbit don't look the same to me. So
did you see the meme going around about the green one, right?
Yeah.
About its final evolution form being Cell. I thought that was
right.
funny. But
yeah.
I love that the random battles are back. That's on the screen right now with the trailer. I love that that's back, and how you crouch in the grass. This looks like a consoleized Pokemon game that isn't, like you said, like a Go version. And the battles look really cool. The fact that you can go indoors. I know this has been stuff that's kind of been in Pokemon games kind of leading up to this, but now we have one that's next level, powered by a console instead of a handheld. I mean, even though the Switch is both, the Switch is a console.
Well, and definitely, let me reiterate, the apprehension that I had about it being a Go style game. That, I mean, I watched 3 more seconds of the gameplay of the trailer, and I was like, oh, okay, And then I remembered back to Nintendo's kind of press release 5-6 months ago, whatever it was, when they said, be prepared, we have a next generation Pokemon game coming next year sometime. It's not going to be in the style of Pokemon Go. So my apprehensions were definitely unnecessary, and I just needed to be a little bit more patient. As funny as some of these memes have been, I was a little bit disappointed that this got memeified as quick as it did. because there are, and you know, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm sure that there's someone out there that said, you know what, them pocket demons got made into a meme, and now I don't want to play them.
Well, you know, within one day, I had seen these 3 starters sexually objectified into curvaceous women, and I showed Blaine. I said, it's been less than a day. The internet is nuts.
And then you saved all those images.
I did not save those images. I showed him and then scrolled on.
But, you know, there was the sword, shield, gun memes that popped up right away.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. It's 2019. I mean, everything is meme.
Yeet. Is it Pokemon Yeet?
Mm-hmm. That's an edition that I actually want.
Right. You know what? I'm super excited for this. This is a game that's coming out this fall that I won't be able to buy because of my new kid. And I say that. I'm going to keep saying that. I got to put it back in my mind. I got to wait probably until Christmas bonus until I can buy some games to catch up on some stuff. But I set out Go. I wanted to get it, and then I was like, man, I don't know. If I want to play the whole game like that. I thought it would be something cool that maybe my kid could do but then I'm thinking he's going to throw the damn thing and he's going to hit stuff with it.
I think I might have enjoyed Go a little bit more if I had the Pokeball controller or the Pokeball Joy-Con.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed my Switch so much, and I can barely justify buying another set of Joy-Cons because I've essentially just played the Switch by myself. That I can't really justify buying a Joy-Con that's shaped like a Pokeball for like $70, you know? So, I mean, I'm sure I'll eventually get it. And I think it would be really nice that it's not mandatory that you play this in the style of Go. But for all the fans that bought that Pokeball Joy-Con for Let's Go, I think it would be really good on Nintendo if they allowed, or if they made that Pokeball supported in this game. Yeah. I think a lot of fans would say, you know what? I may or may not have enjoyed Let's Go, but this looks really cool, and I can use that controller again, so I'm definitely going to get it.
Right, you know, and that peripheral is like $50 or something like that. So, oh, hey, I think my kid's coming back here to say goodnight. If you can get the door open. Hey, buddy. Oh, of course he did. Do you want to come up here? Yeah. Daddy's talking to Tyler on the podcast.
What's up? What's up, Wyatt?
He says, "What's up?"
What's up? Yeah.
Can you say hello?
Hello.
That's some rocking hair, dude.
Yeah. Say thank you.
Thank you.
We're talking about Pokemon. Can you say Pokemon?
Pokemon.
Yeah. You know, I don't think we've quite introduced you to Pokemon yet. We just started with Dragon Ball, haven't we?
Yeah.
Do you like Dragon Ball?
Yeah.
What do you like about Dragon Ball?
He just stop and fight.
They fight? Yeah.
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 Yes. Is that you?
Do you like Gohan?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is that a game over there?
Yeah, that's a game. We're talking about the new Pokemon Sword and Shield, and if you're on the live stream or on YouTube, you can see I have the trailer playing in the background.
Yeah.
Is that pretty cool? Are you getting ready to go night?
No.
You're not?
I just want to talk.
Oh, you just want to stay back here and talk?
I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah.
Question. How you doing in there?
How are you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing good.
He said he's doing pretty good.
Thanks for asking, Wyatt.
Yeah. You're doing really good. Chatting.
All right, buddy. Well, we're going to finish up this podcast. You need to go night-night.
Listen.
Can you give me lovin's?
Yes.
Well,
yes, guys.
Yeah, I know. Can you give me lovin's? Give me a hug. No, I want to do the podcast. All right, come here.
But, Dad, I don't want to give you a hug.
Yeah, we got to do your eat-us. Okay, come here. Give me a muss. Love you, kiddo.
What is this?
That's my chair. That's my chair. Love him. Why?
What in tarnation is this?
Oh man, he is so cute.
Oh, gotta love him.
Yeah, man. Appearances from both kiddos on this show. But dude, I when I saw the trailer, I was initially this is exactly what I want, man. This is like the traditional Pokemon game on the Switch. And from the get-go, they showed me just enough in the trailer to say, look, your random battles are back. You're they've upped the game on the visuals, which of course they should. They're on the Switch, and this doesn't look like just a handheld game put on a console. This looks like it's going to really push the barriers of what the next Pokemon games are going to be.
Right.
And
and obviously, we've got a whole new region, which will be cool. It's very UK centric, which has never been done in a Pokemon game before. So I think that'll be really neat. The one question I had about Sword and Shield is, as funny and kind of tongue in cheek as the Sword Shield gun memes have been, kind of going all the way back to the beginning. Does the Asian market get get its own release of its own version of the game in kind of i.e. Pokemon Green, Leaf Green, or whatever it was, the first one?
Well, I don't know. They really haven't done a third version of a game in a little bit. With Black and White, we didn't get Gray. We got Black and White 2, which was kind of a sequel with, then they did some of the remakes over the years. So it's like, I don't exactly know. Is it needed? How many Pokemon are we getting added? We don't necessarily know. They typically do what, about 100 per generation, kind of ish?
Yeah, roughly.
So it'll be interesting to see what ones are exclusive to what versions. Of course, there's always two versions, and they're sort of equal down the line. If you've noticed, they've always sort of keep the same ones that they've kept separate throughout the generations. They just say, well, Growlithe was exclusive to Fire, so Fire Red or Red version, so we're going to keep him over here. And in a way, just from the colors, we're getting another red and blue,
right,
with that. So that's kind of cool. But, I'm thoroughly excited for this. This is going to be their killer app, their big killer game, and for the fall. I feel like what they did was pretty smart, though, because they capitalized on the repopularization of Pokemon using the Go app, and then bringing them in with the Let's Go game to saying, hey, guys, it's been a long time since you played a traditional game. Guess what? Next year, that's coming out. So if you already have a Switch, here it is for you. And then, of course, all those that haven't bought the Switch yet, who have been maybe waiting, this is your chance. This is,
I think this is going to be a big moneymaker for Nintendo. There are going to be a lot of people that I would easily say that as many people are going to buy a Nintendo Switch and any accessories for this Pokemon game as the same amount of people that bought a Nintendo Switch so they could play a new Zelda game.
Well, and that could be, and we've talked about here on the show how crazy Let's Go sold. Let's Go sold a lot of copies in like a month or 2 months. And then how much Smash Brothers sold. It sold gangbusters in less than a month. It sold like 10 million copies. It's about to overtake. I guarantee you it's going to overtake and become the best-selling game on the console.
Yeah, because the last time that I had looked, it was still, in a lot of, reports, still outselling a lot newer games for the Switch.
The hopes are that this game is going to, carry Nintendo. Nintendo has a lot of exclusive games coming to the Switch this year. Not just, in Pokemon, but with the new Marvel Ultimate Alliance that's going to come out that isn't a first-party thing, and that's kind of cool that they're getting that. But they've all, they are really pushing forward with some exclusive content for the Switch, and it's getting to the point that the Switch is now 2 years old. And it's crazy to think that it's sold. I think it's sold since the beginning of the year. Like beginning of the year, they had about 32 million. The estimated number for Xbox is for all the Xbox models is about 40 million, which is more than half of the PS4 sales. That that thing's a monster. That thing's going to catch up and be over 100 million and be the number 2 selling game console of all time. I guarantee you. But
so I want to backtrack a little bit, and we don't have to go super deep in it. I basically just want your opinion. But after the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Maverick or the Scarlet, or of all the things that it's been rumored to be named, the next gen Xbox get announced, does Nintendo answer and say, "Here's the Nintendo Switch with maybe a little bit more oomph"?
Rumors are we're getting a pro version, but it's still rumors because a lot of the same chips and technology are into the Switch that are in the newer consoles, using some of the it's not exact. But do I think that the newer version of the Switch would be comparable to the PS5 and Xbox, whatever? Probably not, but it's probably going to be enough of a notch under that they could probably get those games to work on that. Just like we've seen ports of Doom and Wolfenstein and those kind of games be playable on the Switch. Some people have cracked it, and the idea behind that is that the architecture's not too far below of what the PS4 and Xbox One are capable of doing. So you just got to make it work. You got to go in there and you're going to have to tinker with it and make it work, and it's doable. And you got some companies that have got it. You have some that don't. But I think it would be in Nintendo's best interest to stay concurrent with that. And it's like, you have all these Switches out there right now, and some people are like, well, why did I buy this thing? Well, that's because this thing is awesome, and that you don't have to jump into the new one right away. And in fact, all the games you already have for it will be playable for it. You can take your system in right now and trade it up into it, and your new console is going to cost you even less. And that's what they are going to be looking at doing with selling a Switch Pro. Is all the people who've already bought one, they're going to buy a second one and give their other one to their child or to their buddy or their roommate or whatever, and let them do that, or their other family member, or they're going to trade up into it. I mean, to me, as Nintendo, I would wait until those consoles are out and get a little bit ahead of that, and that when people are wondering why aren't there new games, why aren't these on the Switch, and then maybe 6 months to a year going, hey guys, here you are, we've let those, they're gonna let Nintendo sees themselves as like the accessory to those consoles. They don't see themselves as, well, people are either going to buy us or them. They're going to say, they're going to buy us along with them. So they want to give those guys that are going to buy those systems enough time to be able to buy those systems and get the games they want, and then to be able to say, well, if you want those games on the go plus all your other Switch games, here's another system for you to, and that's what I would do if I were Nintendo.
I like it. I think basically at this point, much along the same vein as I said with Pokemon, I think anything that Nintendo does, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to make them enough money that they continue to have the opinion that they can keep doing the things that they want to do. And I think as a companion to that, fans like you and myself, I was on the fence about getting a Switch. You talked me into getting a Switch, which I appreciate, because I've really enjoyed the time that I've spent with my Nintendo Switch. I went as far as to get the Nintendo Online service. It was $20 for a year, and I thought, you know what? I already pay, $100 a year for PlayStation and Xbox. Luckily, I've capitalized on some deals with PlayStation Plus. So I have like almost 3 years of PlayStation Plus right now that I got for a little bit more than what I would have paid for like a year and a half of PlayStation Plus.
That's good.
So I got pretty lucky there, so I don't have to worry about that for a long time. But the only thing that the only real, I guess, complaint or nitpick that I've had with the Switch thus far is those couple things that I've had with Pokemon Let's Go, where some of the user interface, when I want to just use a button to throw a Pokeball, I can't. That's not a super big, how do I want to put it? That's not a super big X in the wrong column for Nintendo. And Their party chat, I have to use my cell phone.
Yeah, that's not very well implemented.
So whenever I play with my buddy Andy that was on here earlier, we just get on Xbox, party up there, and then I switch inputs on my TV, and then that's how we do it.
Yeah.
It's sad that we have to do that, but at the same time, I only had to pay $20 for a year of it. So, I mean, it's your pluses and minuses for sure, like everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Nintendo releases a Pro Switch, I'm gonna have a hard time not buying a case for my current Nintendo Switch, giving it to my kid, and then buying myself a Switch Pro. I'm really going to struggle not spending that money.
Well, sure. And then there's the rumor that they're coming out with like a Switch Mini, which won't switch at all and take over the handheld market for when they're going to finally put the nail in the 3DS.
I think that's smart on their part. Either fully transition to the current model that they have right now with the Nintendo Switch, or I don't want to say dumb it down because that's obviously not the right nomenclature, but downsize a little bit, optimize what you have for a kind of a smaller footprint, because people are going to buy it. I mean, I think we've thoroughly established that or Nintendo has thoroughly established that pretty much anything that they make right now, people are going to buy it.
Even cardboard.
Mm-hmm. Especially cardboard.
Especially cardboard. Well, and the thing is, you'll be able to phase out the current model completely. You'll be able to put out 2 whole new models with new chipsets, which would fix the whole hacking, thing that they had with the Tegra chipsets. And marketing is all important. As we learned, the marketing of the Wii U was a complete and total failure. So they need to be able to market and say this is the Switch Pro, and market the games for Pro completely. Like, you cannot play this on Mini. And then the mini games, you got to make sure that, if it can't switch, if it can't lock out your Joy-Cons, that, there's going to be some limited stuff there. But then again, just like we saw with the 3DS, they got sued with the 3DS and lost, in every single 3DS 3D model they sold. They had to give a penny to whoever won that suit. And that's why they went gangbusters with saying, guys, get the 2DS without the 3D. It's good for your kids. And we don't have to pay anybody any extra money for it. And, of course, people went and bought the crap out of the 2DS Wedge and then the new 2DS XL.
Well, shit, I almost bought one.
Right.
I didn't even need one, and I almost bought one.
But, I mean, Nintendo's killing it right now on all fronts. And they're only going to get, hopefully, better. And with, they've already kind of hit a lot of their major hitters, of course. With your Marios and Zelda, there's rumors that there's another, not just the Zelda remake that's coming out this fall, but then they're already working on, like, the closure of the Switch is going to be another mainline Zelda game, just like they started it with. So the Zelda remake is going to be the 2D one, right? Mm-hmm. It's a 2.5 kind of like over the head. It's going to be the remake of the Game Boy Link's Awakening, which I marked out so much for that. I geeked out hardcore when I saw, like, okay, a new Zelda thing, and then within seconds I'm like, this is Link's Awakening. This is the opening of Link's Awakening, and it's animated. And then I saw the gameplay, and it looks cartoony, but I'm like, it works. Completely work. I'm like, sold. My gosh.
My first episode, or my first entrance onto your guys' show was talking about backlogs. I think that was my first episode on.
Yeah.
And I have spent a lot of time and effort working through the backlog that I've accrued over the last decade. And then, now we're now in, it's still Q1, 2019. Mm-hmm. I had to do some math in my head. That's real hard. I gotta count to 3. Got to count to 3 and say the name of the months at the same time. I almost shut down. But I've got Metro Exodus that I have been a big fan of that franchise since Deep Silver spent the time to say, you know what? You guys pointed out every flaw that we had with Metro 2033. We're going to not only make a sequel, almost right after we make those sequels, we're going to remaster them both, sell them together as a package, and they're going to be flawless. We promise you, they will be flawless. So, in my opinion, I owe it to Deep Silver and that franchise to finish its story. So I'm trying to break away from Apex so I can finish that. I'm looking over at my Xbox right now because Apex is calling me. But I owe it to Kingdom Hearts 3 to finish that, even though I'm not super happy with it. And I don't necessarily know if it's the game itself or it's just because I'm 27 now and not 15. You know, I think my age has something to do with it. Haley Joel Osment being an adult and not a 12-year-old is also a little bit weird. The lack of Final Fantasy characters has kind of perturbed me a little bit in the game. So I need to finish that. I owe it to Resident Evil to play through as Claire. I mean, that's bringing me back to my childhood, if anything is.
I finished my Claire A, and I really I played Leon's first, and I played through Claire's. I really enjoyed Claire's playthrough. There are things in there that took me by surprise completely after having certain expectations from Leon's.
Did you have about the same run time as you did with Leon?
I was a little faster because I've been actually working at hardcore running the game.
Oh.
I've been watching some videos and getting some tips and tricks. I can now get to the first Birkin fight within 20 minutes.
Really?
On a run. I have seen somebody do it on second run in 10 minutes, and I'm like, I can't. I struggle to get the 20. Last two times I've done it, I was up more of like 23, 25. Because there's certain things that can go wrong. But even though I started Kingdom Hearts 3, I liked what I've been playing of it so far with the gameplay. At first it was like, wow, this is faster than I remember. But I flowed right back into it. I've been having fun with the gameplay.
How much have you played?
Honestly, I got to the first world is Hercules. Then the second one is Twilight. And then I ended up going to Tangled.
Okay. Yeah, that's the way that I went too.
And then that's where I'm at. That's where I quit, was when the first save point on Tangled World. And I was like, I'm going to get back to this. And then I kept looking at RE going, I'm not done with you yet. I'm still having so much fun with that because, and I've said it here, RE2 was able to do something new with something old and still pay homage and everything that you can do to that game while still bringing that style of gameplay into the modern day and making it work.
Everything that they revitalized and improved upon with RE7, I think that they turned it up to 11 with this current Resident Evil that we have. I mean, I loved going back to third person. It just, I hated it at first with Resident Evil 7, and then I fell in love with the first person perspective. Jumping back into the over the shoulder with Leon or Claire, I don't think it matters. It just feels right. Because for me, RE2 I played RE2 before I played RE1. So that first playthrough that I had with Claire or Leon when I was a kid, that's really important groundwork for me as a video game fan. It made me fall in love with that genre. So it just felt right. Everything about my whole playthrough with Leon, other than a few nitpicks that I'll always have because I'm an overly critical guy. I just 10, perfect 10 all day for me anyway.
I agree. They were able to hit on so many things to bring back feels, and almost to bring the podcast full circle, where we're talking about companies that don't deliver on what they promise, or they keep trying to deliver what they promise, or how we said BioWare, did deliver on what they said it was going to be. This game delivered on everything they said it was going to be, and everything that they showed us. It gave us all the right. It gave us enough new. There was enough in this game that felt, if you're playing it like you played the old ones to death, there was enough in here that made you go, wow, this is different, but it feels so familiar. And the first time you see Mr. X lift that chopper up, and then just haunt you for the remainder of your time, not just in the RPD, but then he has other appearances that you go, dang it, I thought I was rid of you.
X gonna give it to you.
X gonna give it to you, and he did. And then also what I loved is how even though when you play Claire, there's so many things that are the same, it does a hard right and it deviates to where you're like, wow, I'm playing a different game. And then it's like, okay, now I'm at the labs and now I'm playing the same game. But now I'm playing something different because it changes it up enough for you for that. I need to get done with my second run. It's a lot harder, as it probably should be. X does show up sooner.
Really?
So, yes, and you will have to deal with him before you go in, before you put the medallions in.
Mm.
So he shows up to mess with you before you even like get done with that. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult. And then, of course, in the second run, there are zombies in the main hall.
Mm.
And there's no save or box in the hall. You have to go further in between your boxes. In fact, I think there's only 2 boxes, one in the photo room and one in the far room that leads you down into the parking lot.
Mm.
And so it's a little bit of a, but it's supposed to be more of a challenge if you've already completed the first run.
Right.
You know, it's supposed to be more of that. And then, as I said, I got all the way on hardcore mode to the first Birkin fight, and then it's like, all right, the strategy here is to knife Birkin to death. Yeah, you go in with 2 knives and 2 grenades, and that's all I've watched the dude do it so many times, and he makes it look easy, and I go in there like, I can do this too, and then I just get grabbed and killed. I cannot do it. I see him do it, and he's like, I'm not a pro gamer. I'm like, me either. He can do it. I should be able to, and I can't. I'm like, I give up.
You just go in there and get fatality'd, and then, well, I guess I'll start this over again.
It got to the point where I'm like, well, maybe. Do I need to play on easy? I don't know. But yeah, no, going through playing those 2 runs, it's to a point where it's like I need to go back to Kingdom Hearts, but part of me is like, man, yeah. I same with you. I owed it to myself to go through Claire's, and I was really grateful for it. But I need to go through that second run so I can get that final end. Even though I kind of spoiled myself, and I've already seen it. I shouldn't have, but I was watching somebody else play it just to see some of the differences, and I just ended up mesmerized and watched the whole damn thing because
Let's keep watching.
You know, it's one of those games. This game is my first in the notch for game of the year because it's already delivered on everything on my $60 that I spent on the digital deluxe due to the old Amazon discount that's no longer in existence, but it already delivered. And even if I never play it again for the rest of the year, that game brought back feels. It gave me new feels. It's now the standard bearer for what Resident Evil is going to be. And that's awesome because this game is selling so good. It's not doing crazy numbers like 20 million, but for what Resident Evil does, it's on track to, like, the original Resident Evil 2 on original PlayStation only sold 5 million. And this game is already shipped 4.
Sweet.
So it's already going to eclipse that. It's going to challenge RE7, I think, for its numbers.
Well, and I think you have to point out, too, that this game is selling well enough that Capcom has said, hey, if you guys want us to do the same thing with Nemesis, we'll definitely do it. I mean,
absolutely.
Capcom is continuing that trend of, if you guys tell us what you want and it's reasonable, Capcom gonna give it to you.
Exactly, and I think it behooves them to do so because Nemesis would be the only one that hasn't received a newer engine port, which is why 2 and 3 were always the ones after going to PS3 and then PS4 and Xbox One and all these stuff, where you have the remake, 0, RE4, 5, 6, Code Veronica, all these games that got made and then ported for the newer generations to play for the first time. Now 2 is going to be included in that, and then if they do 3, then you can have the entire series going forward for everybody. And I can only imagine the kind of terror I will feel. Mr. X was terrible enough trying to deal with the puzzles and him at the same time. To have one of those, which I love the way that they redid it to where he doesn't just like, show up. He just stalks you for a certain amount of the game. If they have that with Nemesis where he's able to run,
right,
I'm going to just like scream because I was already on edge enough having X stompingly pound. I loved how you could hear him coming from the other room, and then you stopped and went, crap, all right. And then you got to try and lose him, and then of course there's a couple rooms he can't go into.
Right.
So then you I actually got one. I actually got to a place where he didn't go, where I was actually supposed to go, and he was right behind me, and he stopped and walked away. And then I'm like, all right, I think I can leave. And I heard his footsteps again, and I'm like, crap, is he here? He was on the floor above me, but I could still hear him. And I'm like, this is like classic Jason Voorhees stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and this is awesome. I totally dug it. I cannot wait for them to do Nemesis, which it kind of seems like they're going to do. They're already working on 8 as we speak, and they're taking input from this game to go forward with that, because they are delighted by seeing how, like, there were just reaction. And I saw a post just before we started in reference to Monster Hunter, Mega Man, Resident Evil, and and with Devil May Cry 5 that Capcom is the old Capcom we love is back. And I just keep bringing it, guys. Just keep doing what you are doing. You guys don't have to deviate. Right now, with the fall of Bethesda, unfortunately, taking place where people are like really down on them. And, of course, with a few years before that, Konami pissing off a lot of their diehard fans. And we're seeing all these big giants and people who we've loved and developers that we've loved crash. And then we saw it with Capcom, too, when they decided to make all their games, like, deviate and be more action-oriented and different.
Right.
And then they've course-corrected, and the people are just praising them nonstop.
Well, and where I was going to go next, and I'll get back to Resident Evil in just a second, you've got, for me anyway, the 2 games that I talked about, plus I need to do my Claire playthrough with RE. Then I've got Days Gone coming out next month. That's a game that I've looked forward to for a long time. I've been really hyped about. It wasn't a game, or it's a game that got delayed, and I didn't say, well, God damn it, I've waited for this long enough. I said, in my mind, I said, you know what? Take the time you need.
Yeah.
Because that first gameplay trailer I saw, I was like, I've got to play this.
Right.
It just looks good. Hey, Clint, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, man, how's it going?
But you've got that. Devil May Cry is one that I talked about the last time I was on the show, that when I finished 4, I didn't want that story to be over. Devil May Cry is so iconic for Capcom that I loved seeing them go back, kind of ignoring the reboot or sidestep that they tried to do with DMC. So, but with Resident Evil, I have very few things on a wish list for Resident Evil. They already knocked off number 1 with redoing RE2. RE3 is right behind it. I would love to see a different take on Resident Evil 0. 0 is one of my favorite games in the franchise. So if they kind of went in and said, you know what, we're going to tweak some things along the same lines that we did with RE2, and they're probably going to do with RE3, I would get a lot of enjoyment out of that and a lot of satisfaction out of that. There was a game that came out, I want to say, in the early 2000s. Let me look it up real quick. I should have done this already. But it was a Resident Evil game with like a light gun shooter for the PlayStation 2 that I really, really dug. It was called Resident Evil Dead Aim.
Dead Aim, yeah.
That is, as much as people hated that game, and it was so different from what everybody wanted. We got that before Resident Evil 4. I would like to see them go back and touch on some of the lesser-known stuff like that.
Well, Dead Aim was the first game to actually have the over-the-shoulder third person, or to actually change that motion, and then when you aimed, you were in first person. The first one for first-person light gun, they had Resident Evil Survivor on PS1.
Yep.
And then they did Survivor 2, which was like a light gun version of Code Veronica. And, I think Code Veronica would be a good one because that's the only one now, if they do Nemesis, that would be in the old style. Right. Really old style. Even though it's in a newer engine. And I just sold the shoot. Oh, no kidding, Clint. He just said he just sold the shooter for that last month for $125. But going also back to revisit, do you remember like Resident Evil Outbreak?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really loved those games. I have the first one and the second one on kind of my tower of reminiscing or antiquity games that weren't necessarily very good, but I still really liked. Outbreak 1 and Outbreak 2 are both on that tower.
Well, like, okay, so those games were pretty early on in the console, for console online gaming, especially for the PS2, with the, you couldn't do voice chat or anything. You had to do like these kind of emotes and stuff like that. But imagine taking like the engine that they've now used with the RE engine with 2 and applying that with like an online mode, because it's like, as much as I said before, where I'm not an online player myself, I think that would be really fun to team up with some other players and have these little scenarios that you can play through together.
Absolutely. Well, and especially, with Resident Evil, the genre is what brings in a lot of fans. But I think, putting the storytelling aside, I think the character pieces that every Resident Evil game inevitably ends up being are what really grabs fans and holds on to fans and turns them into longtime followers of the series. So there's so many cool characters that you could introduce with a game in the style of Resident Evil Outbreak or something along those lines, that I look at Capcom a lot of the same ways that I just kind of hyped up Nintendo. As long as Capcom keeps listening to us as fans and being respectful to us as fans, then I'll be really happy.
Absolutely, dude. They have been absolutely killing it, like I said. And I look forward to, what's around the corner for them. Whether that's a new Resident Evil or, hit us with another Monster Hunter in a couple of years or whatever. It'd be really neat to see what they've got cooking. But
right.
As far as that goes, man, I think that about covers it for us today here on the show. We talked about quite a bit. And it was so good to catch up with you again and talk gaming with you. It's been a while since I've actually sat down and talked to you. I miss you tons. Like, I think about you a lot as far as I'll be at work and I'll think, I wish Tyler were here for me to say this to him right now. Or Blaine will do something where I'll look at him and I wish you were across from me, just so I can hear,
yell at him,
just so I can hear what you could say to him. That happens a lot. But really cool news. I'm actually scheduled to be on Podcastrophe, your show, next week, next Tuesday.
That's my week to be back, so we're going to have some fun.
And I'll actually be in studio for that. I'll actually be in there. I'm going to be on vacation starting next week. It's going to kick off with Metallica down in Indy. I'm off all week and half of the next. It's going to be a great time. I'll hopefully get some gaming in, get some cleaning. I need to clean my game room. One reason why this thing is right here, so that way you guys don't see the mess that is on my futon. I have positioned it in a way that's not in my way.
I'm currently on a plastic folding table in my throne room, facing my fish tank, because I literally have nowhere else to go. So,
there's a lot of projects or things that I've been putting off, getting lost in the daily grind. You get home from work, man, you're tired, and you want to kick back, kick your feet up. I've been chilling out. I've been watching through Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is, as a Dragon Ball fan, I've never done. Because I've always been like, I want the originals. And then I saw like a few videos, and I'm like, I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm loving it.
There's a lot of Kai that I really enjoyed, and there's a lot of Kai that I was like, man, why did they change this?
I'm really digging it as far as the direct translation. I've been doing that. I've been playing some Resident Evil. I've been killing some zombies. I've been running from Mr. X. I've been trying those hardcore runs and just failing miserably at Birkin. I feel like if I can get past him, I'll be good until I get to the next Birkin.
Well, that first Birkin fight's hard anyway. I mean, whether you're on hardcore mode or not, I mean, it's just tough.
Well, and then they did I got to knife him, and I'm thinking of trying it on stream just so people can watch me fail over and over again, but. But, dude, it's been so good catching up with you again here on the show. Hopefully we can have you back on soon. And hopefully Mike's feeling better with his surgery. His surgery's coming up on April 1st. So there's going to be at least an episode that we have pre-recorded that's going to be aired. He's going to have 2 weeks off of work for that. And hopefully he's going to start feeling better soon with his ailment, with this thing he's got going on. Hopefully they can get him feeling good. And hopefully he'll be back with me here soon. But, Tyler, I'll get to see you on Tuesday. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find Podcastrophe.
Check us out on Facebook every Tuesday in between 5:30 and 6. We live stream our show from start to end, and then you can catch that backlog or the stream after it's been live streamed. I said stream 9 times in a row. You can check that out on YouTube at Podcastrophe Pod, I believe, is what the username is. That drops on Thursday. You can check us out on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify now. We recently just got there. Every Thursday our show drops there at Podcastrophe.
Awesome. And, of course, for Game Addicts Podcast, we are now recording every other week. We live stream on Wednesdays on our Facebook page at Game Addicts Play, as well as twitch.tv/Game Addicts Play. The audio version hits podcast services around the globe, including iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, all the stuff, man. If we're not there, if we're not on your favorite audio service, let me know. Reach out to us on social media, on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, wherever we are at Game Addicts Play, and let me know. And, of course, on YouTube, the video version that goes up on there, the stream that we're doing on every Wednesdays, it goes live there. But, Tyler, thank you again so much for coming on, man. It's been so great catching up with you.
Thank you for having me, man. I love being here, and anything you guys need to help you guys get if you guys need a down week or whatever you need, I'm always happy to help. So just let me know. Dude,
I will be hitting you up with some ideas very soon. Trust
awesome.
me, I have some pretty cool ideas that I want to hit you up with. But, guys, thank you so much for checking out this episode of the show. Until next time, I've been Brando.
And I've been Tyler.
See you guys next time, guys. Game on.